Minister, my question is on the sectoral carbon budgets, but more in line with how that fits with the building of a liquefied natural gas terminal. It's clear from the EPA report this week that we have a serious problem, and the problem isn't just a failure to implement the government plan, it's the government plan itself. So even if the sectoral budgets are to be at the high end of ambitions, it still leaves us with a serious emissions gap. And the problem is not, of course, that we are not even hitting those targets. While the Minister, you may talk to double down on the efforts, we seem to live in parallel universes with talk of ambition, of efforts, of strategy, of plans and targets. And will you make a statement on this matter?
Minister.
Indeed. The right statement. The Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Amendment Act 2021 commits Ireland to a legally binding target of a climate-neutral economy no later than 2050 and a reduction in emissions of 51% by 2030 compared to 2018 levels. Following the process set out in the Act, the Carbon Budget Programme proposed by the Climate Change Advisory Council was approved by Government on the 21st of February 2022 and subsequently adopted by the Oireachtas on the 6th of April this year. This Carbon Budget Programme comprises 3 successive 5-year carbon budgets, 21 to 25, 26 to 2030 and 2031 to 2035. Under the Act, as Minister, I must now prepare within the limits of the agreed carbon budget programme the maximum amount of greenhouse gas emissions that are permitted in different sectors of the economy during a budget period, including in the electricity sector, and work is ongoing on that. The Government's policy statement on imported frack gas, which I understand was one part of the question that you had asked. LNG, was approved by Government and published in May 2021. The policy statement provides that pending the outcome of a review of the security of energy supply of Ireland's electricity and natural gas systems that's currently being carried out by the Department, it would not be appropriate for the development of any LNG terminal in Ireland to be permitted or proceeded with pending the review to be completed later this year.
So pending the review, where the energy security issue will be looked at in light of all of the hype around the Ukrainian war, we may indeed have an LNG terminal. You see, I think there's a disconnect between what's happening and the rhetoric that we're getting. And it's clear that government inaction on things like data centres and the huge consumption of our energy that they lead to, and the very strong possibility of an LNG terminal at Shannon, because there's an ambivalence and an ambiguity between all the party leaders, reflected very strongly in a leaflet distributed around Shannon from New Fortress Energy, where they talk about, they quote the 3 party leaders in relation to this in a favourable way. And now we find out that the Taoiseach will meet the billionaire snake oil salesman Wes Edens to discuss the project in a meeting set up by an enthusiastic Fine Gael councillor, Mike Keneally. So what we have here is a coterie of TDs from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael pushing the siting of an LNG in this area with utter disregard for the implications for climate and our ambitions for our targets.
Please, sorry, before you really shouldn't be naming people in the chamber who's not here.
Fact, okay. Signed by the very man, Wes Edens.
Okay.
I heard the Taoiseach speaking in this House not that long ago, and I agree with what he said, that the future, I believe in Shannon, is in hydrogen. If you look at what we have in particularly Cork Harbour and Shannon Estuary, that's where a lot of our heavy industry is. That is where a lot of our electricity generation, oil refineries, pharmaceuticals, all of which will switch to hydrogen. And it's also the location where we'll bring ashore the offshore wind. And that, through electrolyzers converted to hydrogen, gives us the perfect, secure, indigenous gas alternative, green hydrogen, not blue. And that, I believe, will be the Shannon Estuary Task Force are undergoing their work at this moment. And I believe that I'll be saying to them, and I look forward to what their view is, that the correct, best investment for us is to switch to that green hydrogen alternative. And any time I go out the country and talk to people with real expertise in the energy area, where you think forward 5, 10 years, what's the most likely, what's the best investment, they see that hydrogen alternative as the way to go. Frans Timmermans, the Vice President of the European Commission, gave a very important speech 3 weeks ago, I think, setting how ports, particularly those that develop hydrogen, can be the centre of the new economy. That, I believe, will be the future for both Cork and Shannon.
I understand your beliefs, and I think you hold them sincerely, but your beliefs are clashing with the continued push in this House from many TDs and outside this House from local councils and other business interests to push for the LNG terminal at Shannon, and there will be a Board Pleanála decision on it soon, and that board is, I would argue, hugely compromised in recent weeks by information that is coming out about them. But let's call it for what it is. This will be money grubbing and based on the likely profits of Mr Eden and his followers from this project. It's the same attitude that King Louis of France had when he said, "Après moi, le déluge," after me comes the deluge. In other words, it really doesn't matter what happens after this government. So we build an LNG, we make money from it now, and the supporters of more fossil fuel infrastructure will be delighted. And once the floods have gone, who picks up the pieces? And I think this will be a huge kick in the stomach to the climate movement, to Fridays for Futures and to the local campaigns against the siting of an LNG.
Thank you, Minister.
In energy, you always have to get three things. You have to get the price right, because we have to protect our householders. You have to get the environment right. We have to stop the planet burning and local pollution that comes with a lot of the fossil fuel use. And we also have to secure supply. On all three criteria, I believe that what I'm talking about, the development of hydrogen backup power and hydrogen storage and hydrogen use in power generation and in industries, makes energy sense on all three. And our circumstances are different to other countries in terms of, to answer Deputy Staunton, we are in a difference. We are not at risk in the same way other countries on the switch off of Russian gas. We are at risk of the higher prices because it's a fungible market. But the real security risk for us is, going back to what we said earlier on, our reliance on fossil fuels. Those LNG ships that everyone would say give you security, we showed in the last year doesn't give you security. There was no guarantee. We were talking to one of the European or the UK gas regulators and saying they found themselves in the middle of the high price, real crisis. Could they get ships? No, because they were going to Asia. They turned around in the Atlantic and moved the other way. There's not real security in that route. Whereas with the hydrogen alternative, we know that wind can be converted into hydrogen and stored locally. We're not dependent on anyone else. And everyone is now looking at that as the major investment development. We are developing a hydrogen strategy which will be developed at the same time as we do our energy security review and we do the Shannon strategy.
Thanks,
and I believe all three will come up with what I see as sound, energy, basic, common sense analysis that when you're thinking 5 to 10 years out, that's the investment we should make.
Thanks, Minister. Next question. That's it. No, sorry, Deputy. Your time is done. Your time is up. Yeah, you were in twice.
Once.
No, you came in twice.
I asked the question, came in once.
You came in, asked the question, and you came back in again. Or am I correct? I can't remember. Sorry. Can we check? No. Okay. She said you came in. What?
I asked the question and came in once.
She's telling me that.
Okay.
Sorry, Deputy.
I'll come in again the next one.
Right.